Testing, 1, 2. Let me know if you hear me or not. Do I have to do every one? No.
It's entirely in your.
Thank you very much, everyone, and understand that we actually cannot start our meeting till 7 p.m., so we have another couple of seconds, but thank you. We're just not sitting here looking at you and having you look at us, but we have to wait till the posted time. So thank you for your patience, and it is 7 o'clock. So welcome, and this Board of Education since 6 p.m. this evening has been in closed session for purposes of a discussion of lawfully closed meeting minutes, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel of the district, litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of a particular district has been filed or is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, and finally, student discipline. And with that, I will entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to come out of closed. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And with that, I will welcome you again, those of you that are here in person and on the World Wide Web, to our mission to educate students to be self-directed learners, collaborative workers, complex thinkers, quality producers, and community contributors. And Ms. Bell, roll call, please.
Board members present: Kristen Fitzgerald, Susan Price, Terry Fielden, Jackie Romberg, Donna Wankey, Mike Yench, and Susan Crotty.
Thank you very much. And we have some wonderful students from Napier Elementary, and I'm sure they will introduce themselves. So stand as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance with Napier Elementary.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to introduce our Napier students who are going to start the evening today. I will have them introduce themselves because they're very good at public speaking.
Maria Carcelo, Alexander Farsalis, Zoe Farsalis, Allie Krolik, Max Carcelo.
Parents who want to take a picture?
There are
of
some
your
parents.
kids, come on up front here and feel free to take your kid's picture. Great job.
Good job. Thank you so much for coming. That's what it's all about. Next is good news, and I will turn it over to our superintendent.
I have some good news, actually some great news, actually a long history story that dates back to 1993. Maybe previous to that, but I'll start at 1993. So my good news, and it's coincidence that the person is here tonight for a whole other purpose, but I'm going to share some good news on a group of young women from Naperville North High School who just very recently we recognized for first place in the state for cross country. But further congratulations are in order to members of the Naperville North girls cross country team who recently participated in the Nike Cross Country National Championship in Portland. Competing as the North Naperville Cross Country Club, the team claimed 4th in the nation. So congratulations to the Naperville North girls cross country team, and Coach Iverson is here, so congratulations. As I said, it's a bit of a history lesson, so bear with me for a minute. Coach Iverson can't take credit for all of these. Some of these predate him. State place finishes since 1993. For our girls cross-country team at North. 1993, first. 1994, third. 1998, second. 1999, third. 2000, second. 2001, first. 2003, third. 2004, first. 2005, first. 2007, third. 2011, third. 2012, first. 2013, second. And 2014, first. What a program. Congratulations to that group.
Oh, so it wasn't just a blip.
So great deal of respect for those young ladies who, in the work that they put in, because following them on Twitter and following what that team does is amazing. We're going to keep some celebration tonight in the Iverson family and ask that Colin Iverson come forward and Principal Brian Valek. So as you're aware, one of the outcomes of our future focus process, community engagement process, was the community input that we should be recognizing and celebrating students for accomplishments not only in the classroom and how they perform on test scores, but for their contribution to our school and our school community. And this month we're going to recognize 2 students from Kennedy, and the first is Colin. Colin Iverson is an 8th grader at Kennedy Junior High School, and he's being recognized as a community contributor and a collaborative worker. During his 3 years at Kennedy, he has donated time during lunch 2 to 3 days a week to help during social skills groups. He's been an amazing positive peer and support and has developed respect for himself, empathy for students who are different from him, and displayed patience and kindness in working with diverse groups of students. He maintains excellent academics and participates competitively in athletics. So congratulations to Colin for living the district mission.
Nice.
Okay. Colin, anybody here you want to recognize?
I'd like to thank my family.
Would you raise your hand? I see Mr. Iverson, Mrs.
A
Iverson.
modest
Very
young
good.
man.
Great
We
job,
like
Colin.
that. A modest.
And then is Olivia Nelson with us? Olivia. Okay. Another student from Kennedy. So, Olivia Nelson, a 7th grader at Kennedy Junior High School, is being recognized for being a quality producer and a self-directed learner. She always does her best on all her assignments, often going above and beyond, applying concepts learned in one class to assignments in another class. She shows pride in her work, puts forth effort, and gives attention to details. She does this all while trying to overcome limitations other students don't face. She continually contributes to the Kennedy community by being a member of student council and helping with dances. She belongs to the school band, K Club, and is a homework club regular. Additionally, outside of school, she volunteers her time with several organizations. Congratulations to Olivia for living the district mission and exemplifying being a quality producer and self-directed learner.
I like when the person taking the picture smiles too.
Yeah, well, it
Because
helps.
it does.
Makes you smile. It's exactly right. It's contagious.
Yeah. That's good. I love it. Thank you very much. We do love good news. And we would love for you to stay with us this evening if you can. We certainly understand if your schedule doesn't permit you to. You can always watch us on the World Wide Web and track us later. So thank you very much. The next part of our meeting is public comment, and just to refresh everyone's memory, if you're here and you would like to speak and you're speaking on behalf of the group, you get 5 minutes. If you're speaking as an individual, you have 3 minutes. And I think there's a couple people that would like to come and speak. The first one, no particular order, OC Davenport. If you could come to the front, please, OC. And there should be 2 lights on. This is usually our biggest challenge of our meetings. Brad will get it all done. And OC, it says here you're speaking on behalf of yourself, so 3 minutes, please. And if you could just mention your name and address for the record, please.
Will do.
Thank you very much. I know you know this drill because you've sat in these seats, looking this way.
Good evening. I'm O.C. Davenport, and my address is 101 South Stalford Drive, Naperville. I am just wanted to challenge the board. I had a chance to attend the 2020, Illinois 2020 Vision informational session last week. And in going through, I was going through and saying, okay, what makes this different from what we've been doing? And as such, then, I started with the mission statement, and it says, "It is our responsibility as educators to reflect upon the current state of education in Illinois." Please circle current. The question is, if we are going to produce students who are all the things we said in our mission statement, if you only focus on current, what happens? Ask the question, how is it that today we continue to say we don't have people prepared for the jobs? So if you're not looking to the future, are we properly preparing students? The other part of it is the statement around highly effective educators. Again, I want to challenge you to think about, do we have highly ineffective teachers? Or this was said, educators. And when I went through the information that's kind of beneath this, I didn't see a whole lot about students. So the question is, if students are a target, where are the students in these statements? And then the other one had to do with, I think I'm going to just leave it there for now, because I want you to think about it. And there was an example was given at the meeting. Some problems are like trying to turn the Titanic in the Mississippi River. The other one has to do with improvement. If you will go to the statement that says that we will be about continuous improvement, and the question is, improvement of what? If it's like turning the Titanic in the Mississippi River, are you going to reduce the size of the Titanic? Are you going to improve on the size of the Mississippi River? Just some things to think about as you review the Illinois 2020 vision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the other speaker we have this evening, Jay Fisher. And Jay, I think you're speaking as a group. So you've done this before. You could just mention your name and address. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Hopefully you have two blue lights.
I hope so. There we go.
There you go. Great.
President Romberg, members of the board, staff, my name is Jay Fisher. I reside at 6554 Tealwood Drive in Lisle, and I'm here this evening in my capacity as president of STAGE. STAGE stands for Supporters of Talented and Gifted Education. We are like to comment on agenda item 6.04, which is the gifted program update. For several years, the District 203 committee has been studying gifted programming, looking at ways to make it more inclusive and ensure that those who can benefit from gifted programs are identified for inclusion. The committee was guided by belief statements including, we believe that all students should be supported and challenged by a program of study with rigorous and relevant curriculum so that students can achieve at levels commensurate with their intellect and ability to reach their full potential. And we believe that all students who exhibit exceptional intellect or who perform or who have demonstrated their potential to perform at superior levels when compared to others of their age, experience, and or environment in academic disciplines should have advanced learning opportunities available to them. STAGE strongly supports these statements and appreciates the commitment the district has made to challenge all students commensurate with their abilities. We are aware that districts around us haven't shared these beliefs, and we are grateful that District 203 continues to recognize the needs of gifted and talented students by providing strong programs for them. In late October, members of the STAGE Executive Board met with Assistant Superintendent Wyringa and Gifted Coordinator Coda to provide feedback on the draft changes the committee is proposing. Almost uniformly, the comments from the STAGE board members present were positive. We particularly thought the new appeals process that allows appeals to be initiated by parents, students, teachers, or other district employees and decided by a district-wide appeals committee was necessary and beneficial. We were pleased to hear that the appeals process will begin this spring. More positive changes shared with us in October include making the matrices more uniform across programming and grades, enlarging the performance series and COGAT scores that qualify you to move on to further testing, and creating placement tests for PI and PI+. A lot of work was done to make sure the process properly identifies every student that could benefit from gifted programming and that the potential of every student is maximized. At the time of our meeting, the major variable still undecided was the score on the new matrices that would qualify a student for placement in gifted programming. We were informed that the committee was tasked with neither enlarging nor shrinking the number of students in the gifted programs. The profile of the students would change, but not the number of students in the programs. It seems that the cut scores will be set based on keeping the number of students the same, not based on what score equates with a student who would benefit from gifted programming. This seems at cross purposes to the goal of ensuring that the potential of every student is maximized. We know that our district is blessed with more than our fair share of bright students. For example, in 2010, based on COGAT scores, the top 50% of fifth grade District 203 students scored better than 80% of the students nationally. 35% of these same students scored in the top 10%. That's 3.5 times more than statistics would predict. That year, 22% of the fifth graders were in PI and 18 were in honors math. Also that year, 16% of our fifth graders scored in the top 4% nationally, and yet only 2.5% of fifth graders were in PI+. Stage thinks that there are many students in District 203 who would benefit from the high-quality gifted programming in this district, more than are currently enrolled, and that is also apparent in the number of students allowed in the PI+ program. District 203 should endeavor to set the cut scores on the matrices based on academic evidence, not on numerical status quo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, student ambassador reports. Our student ambassadors are studying for finals, though I did get a report from Naperville North, from Bryce, talking about the fourth place Naperville North cross-country team, and also that their school, they're working on their spring programming and all that's going on at North right now. So that was their report, and I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about Centrals at the beginning of the year. So, written communication, it's there for your perusal. Superintendent staff school report.
Great. We have several brief reports this evening. Well, several brief and one a little bit longer. First, you see that attached in board docs is a tentative preview of board meetings planned for the next few months. I'll just call to the board's attention. We anticipate and hope to be able to provide an anticipated enrollment report and update at our January 20th meeting, and then also a facility report at the February 17th meeting. Again, these are tentative and just available for your review for upcoming events. And then at this time, I'll invite Assistant Superintendent for Assessment Analytics, Tim Warenga, to come to the presentation table. Tim is going to give the Board of Education an update on the gifted program that a community member just spoke to. This report does connect to the District 203 Vision 2020 blueprint, specifically commitments number 118E, which deals with providing systems of supports for students, 218C, balanced assessment system, and then also 218D, which deals with reporting student progress. So I'll turn it over to Tim.
Thank you, Superintendent Bridges. This evening I will review the progress in the area of gifted and academically talented students here in District 203 and the programming through the committee that has served the last 3 years. The outcomes of this presentation are to share the work of the Gifted Committee, which has been taking a 3-year journey to reach this point, and to outline the changes in the identification and placement process for gifted and talented students. A gifted committee of 18 teachers, principals, and other administrators was formed in 2012-13 and has been led these 3 years by Debbie Coda, our coordinator of gifted and talented, and Sue Streetel, a project manager in learning services. They are here this evening along with many of the members of the committee. If they would please stand. This team was charged with first examining the data for the program and reading the research on gifted and talented services. The committee was also charged with formulating a set of beliefs based on data and research and design program goals for gifted and placement services. I was going to wait till the end of the slide, but they can sit down now. That's okay. You can sit now. So we had tried to. So it was the stretch brain break time of the presentation. The final outcome of our work was to revise the identification and placement protocols and then create a committee-based appeals process. The draft work of this team has been reviewed and submitted for feedback to the principals, cabinet, teachers, and also to STAGE, our gifted and talented parent organization. The committee started its work in the winter of 2012-13 school year. The first stage of the work was a broad review of research and the current programming in District 203. One of the cornerstones of this review was to examine the American Institute of Research, or AIR report, which was an external review of our gifted and talented services. During the 2013-14 school year, the team accelerated its activities to develop a set of beliefs and program goals. This led to the focused outcomes of developing an appeals process, draft new identification and placement protocols, and also start the assessment writing process for new placement assessments. A draft of the proposed changes in our assessment system was reviewed by staff and parent stakeholders this past spring. This year will be the first phase of implementation of the work. Due to a review of our assessment suite and the feedback received from stakeholders in this previous spring, a new universal testing schedule is being implemented to help balance our assessment system. We have rolled back some of our assessments as we anticipate the implementation of PARC this spring. We have submitted the protocols and work I am sharing with you this evening to staff and parent stakeholders for review, and we are in the process of creating and piloting placement assessments. This past month, we partnered with STAGE to share with the community the changes in our assessments, and we are coordinating together another meeting this February to discuss these new developments with the community. And this spring, we will implement our new appeals process, which will be accessible and transparent. Next year will be the second phase of implementation. Identification is the process of determining who moves through the process. Placement is the final determination of which students will receive services. The new protocols for next year are detailed in flow charts on board docs. We will finish our pilot this year of the placement assessments early and then begin to use them in the spring of 2016. When we examined our data, we determined that we needed protocols that helped us better select students. The committee developed the following belief statements. We believe that talents and gifts manifest themselves in multiple ways and at different times, and that students' talents and potential should be valued and fostered, and that students should be challenged by rigorous and relevant curriculum, and that gifted and talented students should have advanced learning opportunities available to them. Our selection process was too broad in some cases and too narrow in others. Our gifted and talented population does not represent our overall student population. So these belief statements, which are spelled out completely in a document on board docs, help to guide our work. Our committee then developed program goals for gifted and talented services. These provide us with direction in our programming. The work of the committee proceeded to move from beliefs and goals to focused work in one area of our programming, and that is the identification and placement of students in gifted and talented services. The focus was in two areas: the tests we use and the input we receive from teachers. As I review the different aspects of our gifted and talented program, let me first define some of the terms in our program. Honors Mathematics starts in 3rd grade and continues through 8th grade. It deepens and accelerates the curriculum for our students. Project IDEA in grades 4 through 8, or as it is often called PI, is an honors language arts class. IDEA stands for Increase and Develop Excellence in Academics. Project IDEA Plus, or PI Plus, which is in grades 4 through 8, is often mistaken by those who are not familiar with the class as only an extension of Project IDEA. It is, in fact, a class that integrates all of the core curriculums together. As we examined our assessment suite, it was apparent that there was an over-reliance on COGAT as the primary entry point for the gifted and talented services. This is not only evident in our placement matrices, but it was evident in our universal testing. In anticipation of Park this spring, we determined that we should use academic tests that we already give universally in order to free up instruction time in our elementary schools. Because our research uncovered that Iowa was not widely used to inform instruction for most of our students, we will no longer give the Iowa as a universal test. Instead, it will be used for placement purposes only. Performance series will also be used as a screener. We will only give the COGAT in the fall of 3rd grade and the spring of 4th grade as a universal test. Identification includes testing students to decide who moves on to the next stage of the process. Once the testing and inventories are complete, the placement process includes all of the available data. In our present practice, the tests used to place in Honors Math and Project IDEA are different. Even in Honors Math, the tests used at the different grade levels are often different. This was difficult to communicate to both parents and students as part of the process. Since our belief is that talents and gifts manifest themselves in varied ways, our identification and placement process should clearly reflect that belief. The process we have created brings consistency and clarity. Our program evaluations summarize certain remedies. Our new system will include placement tests for Honors Math, Project IDEA, and Project IDEA Plus. We have teams that have created and are presently piloting these placement tests. We believe that our assessment system must be balanced, and as part of our cohesive work, we were able to reduce the amount of universal testing related to gifted placements. Our committee researched tools that could capture the input from teachers during the placement process. The recommendation from the program evaluation was to use an inventory as teacher inventory that has been researched. The Renzulli Scales Observation Inventory comes from the research of Joseph Renzulli. He has collaborated with David Lohman, the creator of the COGATs, and both the content and function of the Renzulli scales was determined by the committee to best match our needs. A couple of items from the inventory are listed on the screen to provide a sample. Students are placed into Honors Mathematics and Project IDEA by evaluating their scores on a matrix. Students can accumulate points for the placement through multiple and varied profiles. Our present set of matrices only apply to Honors Math and Project IDEA. We have added a placement matrix for Project IDEA Plus, so a placement test could also be considered as part of the process. We have modified the Honors Math and Project IDEA matrices to provide more consistency and clarity to the process. Let me illustrate by looking at samples of the matrices. On the screen is the Project IDEA matrix, which we currently use. The testing included aptitude testing, which is the COGAT, which measures thinking and ability testing skills to see if the students can apply patterns. Our testing also included content testing. In this case, the content tests are the Iowa subtests of reading comprehension and vocabulary. One issue that made the matrix hard to synthesize for parents and students was that scaling for the different national tests was different. The COGAT used a standard age score, which has a national mean of 100 and a standard deviation of 16. The IO was reported using National Percentile Rankings, or NPRs. It was not clear to parents, staff, and to our students how these scores related to each other, if at all. We have created drafts of new placement matrices. While this year we are still using the same matrices for placement, we are gathering data through field testing of the placement tests and data scenarios this year to help finalize the new placement matrices, which will be used next year. A flowchart provided in board docs provides detail, identification, and placement information. The new placement matrices provide consistency and clarity for the process. First, the Honors Math and Project IDEA matrices mirror one another. Next is the visual weighting of the aptitude tests and content tests. The aptitude test, which is still the COGAT but different subtests, carries more weight in the placement in Project Idea Plus than it does for Honors Math and Project Idea. The content tests carry more weight in the placement in the Honors Math and Project Idea programs than in the Project Idea Plus program. For the new matrices, this should help us to better place students in the program. To bring consistency and clarity to the scales used, the Honors Math and Project Idea matrices will use national percentile ranks. Since the students qualifying for PI Plus typically score in the 99th percentile, the standard age scores will still be used for the Project Idea Plus placement. Each matrix consistently uses the scales instead of mixing scales, as our present matrices do. One of the more important parts of the process will be the appeals process. Presently, an appeal would typically go through individual layers, starting with a parent, oftentimes calling a building principal, and potentially escalating to administrator at the district office. A new process will allow family members, staff members, or even the student themselves to appeal their placement. A sample draft of the form is in board docs. The rationale will be considered by an appeals committee who will independently and collaboratively consider the merits of the appeal. This will allow for consideration of the individual in the placement process. The appeals process will be transparent and made available to any student, not just those who know how to access the system. In summary, the work of the Gifted and Talented Committee has been extensive and thorough. Debbie Coda and Sue Streetel led the team through a review of research and the development of belief statements. A new identification and placement process is both clear to all stakeholders, and it will provide a more consistent process across the grades. The new Project Idea Plus matrix will include a new performance assessment, and it will be weighted toward the scores in the COGAT. Honors Math and Project Idea matrices will be more consistent in form, and they will be weighted toward the content tests, including a new set of placement tests for Project Idea. The committee also developed a new appeals process that will include an appeals committee who will consider the rationales for individual students. The work of the committee has been submitted for feedback to Cabinet, the principals and teachers, and also with Stage Executive Board. It is our hope that the new process will be more accurate in placing students and be responsive to the varied gifts of our students. I will now take your questions.
Thank you, Tim, for all the data. So if this is going to begin next year, then it won't affect the students that are currently in the program or already placed. We're not going to go back and replace them, correct?
We are not. The only difference this year, phase one, was the change in the assessment suites for the first phase of identification.
Okay. And then, so because we're changing from the COGATs into the national percentile rank, before there was a cutoff where like every student had to have 125 for those COGATs. How does that translate into the NP, how is that different from what you're doing now?
It's a good question, and this is reflected in some of the detail in the flow chart that's listed. And let me summarize. What we've decided to do as a group is to cast a wider net at the beginning of the process to allow students access to the placement process, and then to put the different pieces on the matrix. So, for instance, a 124 on the COGAT, which we typically had a 125, you had to qualify for that. A 124 translates into that 93 NPR that's listed on the matrix. So you have to start gathering points at about the same point, but students who have a 120 or above on that will be allowed access to it, which includes gives access to a more varied group of students.
So then, do you anticipate that the number of students in the program will change compared to what we have now?
We don't. I mean, there's a different process for this occurring. That actually would be a different consideration for a different time. We were not given the charge to consider changes in the number of students, so it won't be exactly the same because it's a new process. But what we anticipate doing is placing better, and then also it could be considered later once we work through this process how that might be a part of the discussion. But this part was just reworking the identification and placement process.
Thank you.
I saw you replaced Bertie Kingor's assessment with the new one. Can you tell me about the differences or why you chose that?
The best way to describe the differences, Bertie Kingor's work was primarily observation of gifted students, how they work in their behaviors in class. Whereas the Renzulli scales are actually researched scales. So as part of the program evaluation, it was actually recommended that we go to a research-based inventory.
And so you were just looking at the chart here. You weren't looking at the whole program, such as like science and social studies for the younger grades. That wasn't part of what that wasn't part of this discussion at all.
Not part of the charge of the committee, no.
So then our speaker brought up the question of, you're saying you don't think we'll have that many different numbers. It may just be different kids than different numbers. So if we have kids that qualify, we're not going to say it's cut off at 30 or it's cut off at 60 or whatever.
As we see, even in the numbers we presently have through the grade levels, we've never established quotas for the program when it comes to having, we have the matrix and then we only take this percentage. So we stopped when it got to, say, 20. So you'll see variations between the years and percentages of kids who get into the program.
And there's kids that don't accept the program, too. I mean, their family decides it's not the right choice for them.
Correct.
Was there anything that you talked about that you didn't end up incorporating in here that was part of your process that just, because it's different, it's tweaked. It's not a new process completely. I do like the appeals opportunity, though.
I think that's the emphasis. Actually, Susan, you've kind of hit what is a good emphasis. In fact, we're trying to implement the appeals process even as soon as this coming spring as part of what we'd like to do. And the appeals process gives a consideration to the individual needs as part of what we're doing. And I think that's something that's very important to the committee.
So other scores will not be considered, and I guess the reason I'm asking is I know some parents take their kids outside the district for additional testing for whatever types of scores that we couldn't do on a large scale to students. So are those not at all would that be part of the appeals process and the rationale, or how would that work?
Parents or students or staff members can submit an artifact to go with the appeals. It's limited as to what they can submit to it, but they can submit an artifact to go with it, and so that might be something they consider to submit as part of that.
So they're allowed one thing to include. That's what you're saying when you say "an" artifact, not a voluminous.
You're right. Anticipation of not having like a portfolio. It's more of
an
that's what to support what their
that's
case
what
was made in the rationale.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation, Tim, and thank you to the committee for the work that you've done. Looking at it, it's exciting to see it. I'm excited that the net will be cast broader. It sounded like, in terms of your description of the way that the students will be entering into the process, your cutoff point instead of 125 is 120, and that will be sort of that, you still have to make that bar, and that's the bar, then you go forward from there. I'm wondering, is the goal of the program to try to get all the students who will be successful in that type of classroom environment?
That isn't the goal. The goal of our curriculum is to meet the needs of students, and so and the core curriculum is designed to meet even varied needs of our students. So our gifted and talented curriculum is also designed to meet the varied needs of those students who are in the program as well. So it is part of the process to better identify, that's part of what we did, is to better place students into the program so that they will find success in the work that they're doing.
And so you're hoping that by including more content in terms of the three sections, that performance area, that you'll be able to better identify students who might have been missed in that first bar with the COGAT, and then...
Let me give a specific example, but I'll give it with the COGAT as the example. The AIR report and also our gifted, our PI teachers identified that, for instance, in using the COGAT, we were previously using both the verbal and the nonverbal scores.
Yeah.
The nonverbal score has been identified by our teachers and also by the review that it was not closely aligned with success in the program. And so as we look through that now, the nonverbal is taken out of the consideration for the PI program because it doesn't lead to success. So we're trying to better match what students will be successful with how we identify and place them in the program.
Were you finding a number of students that came into the program that were perhaps incorrectly placed, or is it more that you thought there were additional students who potentially would be able to be successful?
Both would be the case, yeah. So there were some students who maybe achieved points when, in a new placement process they would not, because it hasn't been identified as leading towards success. But then there are also students who have been not included in that process for whatever reason that we're trying to capture as part of this.
I've heard that from teachers sometimes, that there are, additional students, I think, that they feel like would be successful in the programs, but sort of that hard and fast bar has been a really difficult part of the process. So I think this is going to help that, it sounds like, from what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. That's very helpful.
What percentage did you say is in PI? Like just 5th grade or 4th grade? Is it 1/3 of the kids?
I've got those numbers here.
Okay.
Presently, overall in our entire program, in honors math, we have 17.7% of our students. Project IDEA, 24.68% of our students.
So 1/4 of our kids are qualifying for that. Does
Correct.
that change now that we've changed our curriculum? Has it changed the numbers because the kids are getting more? Will it change the numbers because the kids will be more prepared for those kinds of tests?
I think you will see some changes to these numbers, but that's not the goal to change these, only because you're going to see consistencies between honors math and PI. So I'll give you a scenario. This isn't what's going to happen. This could be something that happens.
That's fine.
You might see, for
I won't
instance,
quote ya.
more students in honors math, less in PI, or vice versa. It depends on that identification process once we look at the data.
So we don't track our kids, but we take them out of class and put them in a different class so that the other classes are still smaller during that content area time.
Yes, and so what you're referring to is during honors math time, for instance, those honors math students are coming out of the regular math class, correct? In the elementary grades, in junior high, they're in their own class.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Tim, I just had a couple of questions. The one question, or the one comment you had, it sounded like there were some concerns, or you were bettering the process, or the committee was bettering the process with this appeals committee. And appeals generally mean people that feel the student or the parent believes they should be in the program. We're not taking people out of the program. So this makes me think there might be the program might grow a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just reading words now, okay?
It could, or it probably won't. I mean, our eventual goal is not to increase the numbers or to decrease the numbers. So we're going to run data scenarios this spring with students. Now, remember, it's not active this spring.
Right.
But we're going to look at how it would impact, for instance, kids that are already in the program. We're not going to take them out because of this, but we're going to run data on it to see how the scores should be placed for the identification and placement process. I don't anticipate that there's going to be more students in the program.
Just if I could add to that, we don't anticipate, but there could.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's an important note to make, that we're not setting we have to get to a certain percentage,
Right,
stay at a
there's no
certain
quota,
percentage,
right.
get to a number. It's to better cast the net, is in Tim's words, over students who might be successful
Right.
in this type of service.
And so as I look at this too, you have an appeals process that is a little bit perhaps more transparent or more understandable, and you also have your parameters are more understandable. And everybody here's what they are, and you've been very forthright. So another question I had when I reviewed this, what is in a population gifted? Isn't that like 10% or 3% or 7%, like 93 to 100? And is that all going to work into this equation? I'm not asking you to answer this right now, but the 20%, that's a big number.
Yeah, our gifted programming is typically referred to as the PI Plus program.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do gifted programming, and I'm going to refer, I think, Jen, we typically have seen in other places 2 to 3%.
Okay.
And is that correct?
And I guess my last comment or question, I know this focus is elementary program, or for 3rd through 8th grade, if you count the math side. In high school, is there still the option where a student and a parent can look at a programming and say, you know what, this might be a chance for a weighted class, but you have to stay in it you sign on the line, as I understand it, and you have to commit to it for that semester. It gives a student another experience at kind of a weighted class when they didn't come up through this process. Is that still out there in high school?
It's kind of the gradual release process.
Right.
So yes, so as they get to the high school, that students and families can choose into, for instance, AP courses, but also honors courses as part of
Right.
that process. But they are advised as part of that process as well.
No, I certainly understand that, and that's how this process works, so that helps me understand it. Thank you. Any other, Kristen?
Just one more question. I meant to ask you, in looking at some of the articles that you attached to the background, the myths, for example, they talked a little bit about the idea of the population of people that you're, in your student body, and how that is reflected in your gifted and honors programs, and sort of the goal and the hope that you would be able to better include all students in that process. Did that play into some of this, and do you hope that this new process will, for example, it talked a little bit about some of the case studies of are we measuring someone's enrichment opportunities that they may have had, or is it really their natural abilities and that kind of thing? And I'm wondering if you think this new process will do a better job of helping all students, regardless of how they come in, to be able to be successful in being able to be tested, at least, for the program.
I believe this new process allows us to continue the discussion to improve upon that area. The discussion's not done, and it's kind of like there are discussions already being had on what other things needs to be next parts of where we go, and that will be a big part of how we discuss anything that comes next as well. We've had, it is our hope that we can better open doors and be more inclusive in how we provide services to all of our students.
Good. Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Michael?
Yeah, just one comment first. First of all, I personally like the way you're starting this, because you're getting new data points, and instead of going in and saying, oh, these are our cutoffs, you're going to have time to reflect on student successes and places for improvement, and then refine the numbers as we're going forward. Because one thing we've learned over and over again, if you rush into things, sometimes you make more mistakes. If you take your time, reflect on the numbers, you're probably going to do a better job. Excuse me. The other question I had was, I reflected on this ever since Common Core became a topic for us. As we increase the rigor of the curriculum for the general student population and emphasize differentiation more in the class, is it possible that we will be capturing and challenging some of the kids who would in the past have gone honors math and challenged them sufficiently and appropriately in the normal curriculum, and could that change our numbers in the format in the future?
I'm going to share this discussion with some of my colleagues behind me, so if Jane or Jen would like to comment.
I think that it's very possible that our core curriculum can and will challenge larger number of students. I also think that there's the potential. I really think that the students will tell us how many will be in honors math, will be in PI, will be in PI plus. So the matrix is there for us to help identify and help place. But I also think, too, that regardless of whether a student is in the core curriculum or whether they end up in an honors or a PI plus, it is absolutely our job to make sure that they all have opportunities for advanced learning. Mm-hmm. So what that means is we identify certain areas within the curriculum associated with the Common Core that there are going to be times when kids they're accelerating their learning very fast, and our teachers have to provide more opportunities for them, and there are going to be times when there are gaps, and they might have to, to really provide detailed experiences for them to learn that curriculum.
No, and I look forward to seeing how this works out, because just anecdotally, I know for me, and actually I had this conversation as a sidebar with Dan a long time ago, I would love to see us offer PI Plus in each of our schools, because I know in my family, my daughter didn't go into PI Plus because it wasn't at our local school. And I'm sure there's many, many other kids and families in the district feel the same way. And if we're able to capture, a portion of the kids that are in honors math now with our normal curriculum, and then can spread out PI Plus to invite more kids, assuming that they're able to handle the curriculum, I think that might be a win-win for everybody, in that we'd be addressing more gifted kids, providing more instruction, more mainstream instruction. It's just an idea, but that's something that only time will tell. And I'm assuming that's something that you would consider in the future. You're not stuck on one model with magnet schools, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, thank you.
Good. Any other comments, questions? Good. Thank you so much, Tim. Very helpful.
You can thank Tim, but he's going to stay right there for just a minute in case you have questions on a brief update that I intend to give that may lead to further discussion. But I had advised the board recently that, let me back up a little bit. For a little bit of time now, we've been having conversation with you regarding change in assessment in the state, moving from ISAT, moving from PSAE, into moving to PARC at grades 3 through 8, and essentially our juniors. One of our concerns that we had and had been expressed by a number of school districts was the concern regarding assessment and testing overloads, particularly among our juniors. When PARC testing for them would come at a time approximately around when there would also be advanced placement testing and ACT testing, and then add into it the PARC assessments that would be taken twice in March and then later in the end of the year. And so the State Board of Education had heard that feedback from a number of high school districts and unit districts that were intending to test juniors or students who were enrolled in English Language Arts 3 and Algebra 2 or Integrated Math 3, which in many districts were juniors. On December 1st, late in the afternoon, we received word from the State Board of Education that in response to concerns that they had heard from districts, that they were going to offer options to districts in the state regarding their selection of students, or courses, I should say, at the high school level in which to administer the PARC test. They offered 3 options: to remain with the state-selected test of the English Language Arts 3 and the Algebra 2 Integrated 3 math model, which had been initially selected, which in many districts, including ours, would include a number of our juniors. Okay? And to provide potential relief for that group of students, they offered 2 other options: to select ELA 3 or ELA 1 and Algebra 1 or Integrated Math 1, which in many districts would be freshmen, or English Language Arts 2 and Geometry or Integrated Math 2, which in many districts would be sophomores. And they gave us till the end of that week to make a decision. Our initial reaction was that maybe logistically and operationally it may be too difficult of a change to pull off. But when we stepped back and thought about it through the lens of what's best for kids and what's best for students, in thinking about the potential amount of testing that our juniors would have to endure, we did opt, with input and conversation from our 2 high school staffs, to shift and take the option to move to English Language Arts 1 and Algebra 1, for which would involve then a number of our freshmen, thus relieving our juniors this year of testing. So that creates some new challenges for us, and that's working with our staff. Staff who have been teaching students all year with the assumption that there would be assessment for them, and teachers, on the other hand, teaching students all year with the assumption that there wasn't going to be state assessment. And freshmen, I happen to be the father of one, who didn't expect to have assessment this spring, and now they will. So we have made that decision because we believe it's what's best for our kids and best for kids at the high school. We remain somewhat concerned about the logistics and operational aspect of pulling off this assessment. We have had some anecdotal feedback from some districts who are on block scheduling, who have already begun park assessment, and things have not been as smooth as we would hope. So we do remain somewhat concerned about the testing coming up. Just also would call to your attention that some of the hope with park is these options are going away now in terms of how we compare with benchmark districts. 2 of our benchmark districts have taken the option, like we have, to test English Language Arts 1 and Algebra 1. One of our benchmark districts will be doing English Language Arts 2 and Geometry. And another one of our benchmark districts will be remaining with the state-selected English Language Arts 3 and Algebra 2. So districts have had to make those choices. I'm just calling this to your attention. We've communicated with the staff, and we'll begin our communication with this announcement to our parents and community. We will be coming back to you, I assume, in January, I hope, after working out some testing and logistics scheduling. We anticipate there will be some interruption to school days at the high school level, or changes to the structure of the school day to accommodate the testing. One, for the need of the use of devices to be able to do the testing, but then also because the testing period for each of the assessments doesn't fall within one of our typical class periods, so it is going to have an impact on the schedule of the day. So more information to come. We're working with staff to manage this change the best that we can. And we'll provide updates and information to you as we move along. Tim, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that. We can see if there's any questions preliminarily that the board might have.
Just met with curriculum and assessment leaders this past Friday, and got a lot of their insights. So this has truly become a collaborative effort of leaders across the state to make it happen well for our kids, and it will happen well for our students. Because of the work of staff members like Roger's team stepped up big time to help make the logistics in the student information system work so that we could get it done for our kids. So,
great. Susan?
How many hours is the testing?
Typically, I'm going to give a round number. It's typically around 10 hours for the anywhere from 10 to 15 hours for whatever grade level. So the way I tell...
In each subject area?
No.
No.
For overall for that grade level.
For those 2, okay.
Yeah, for when you put all the testing together. In essence, it's
What do you mean when you put all the testing together?
If you put, there's 2 testing periods. So if you put the March testing...
For the park, okay.
For the park, yeah. So if you
okay.
put the March testing with the April-May testing, it's almost like you're taking 2 previous state tests, like taking the ISAT twice, or the PSAE twice, a little bit more than taking it twice.
I just add to it some of the logistical challenges for high school compared to like grades 3 through 8 is the identification of who actually tests. In grades 3 through 8, it's easier to manage logistically and operationally because you're testing by grade level. When you get into the high school, it's by course selection, and so so you think about Algebra 1, English Language Arts 1 for Algebra 1, for example. Our top performing math students won't be in that class. They won't be tested. And we could be testing freshmen and some sophomores and potentially some upperclassmen. So this will be, and again, so at the high school it is taught by, tested by course enrollment. That's why we anticipate having some logistical challenges that we're going to have to work through at the high school level compared to the self-contained of the elementary and junior high school.
How does that translate, the 10 to 15 hours translate to class? How many days of classroom time is that?
In essence, it turns out to be, for our elementary students, it turns out to be about, I would say, 3 days each period of time. You know, it's interrupted time, so it's kind of hard to translate. But you know, an elementary student will take the equivalent, because they're probably taking one test a day. They're going to potentially be taking tests for 5 days in the spring in March, and then they'll take it for another 4 days, but only for a period of time. It'll just interrupt their instruction for, say, the morning of those days.
And then are we, just to restate this, what have we given up as far as tests? Have we eliminated any tests that we're then taking?
We, in our elementary grades, we had always given in the spring the Iowa test universally to all of our students. And so we now are only giving the Iowa test if a student is several steps along the process. The COGAT used to be given to all of our students in the spring. It's now only given in the spring of 4th grade as part of that.
Okay. And in high school, have we eliminated any?
High school, the only test that we've given typically was the ACT in Prairie State. So there wasn't anything to really pull back on that. It was an ad.
Okay.
Yes, Kristen.
Will you remind me, the goal of the park was, there's not a performance growth goal, it's mostly, or is there performance?
Yes.
So it's March to April, that
No,
growth, or it's year to year?
Year to year.
Okay.
So the reason why there's March and April is the March test is a performance-based assessment, and so that has to be graded by individuals. Eventually, and I'm saying eventually meaning maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, those tests will be graded by the end of the year, and then they'll be combined with the end of the year assessment, which is given in May or late April. And those two scores will be combined so that the student will walk out the door with their state assessment scores rather than waiting until November for them.
Okay, so it's to help schools judge year-to-year growth, as well as the whole achievement part where you're comparing its benchmarks?
Yes, but and for individual students to be able to understand on the scale from year to year how they're growing. So it's made to scale them, yeah.
Right, so to move forward. So then what our students will do, they'll have it from 3rd till 9th grade, and that will be the end of the park for them?
We anticipated when we originally started planning for the park that we were going to have to give it at 3 grade levels in the high school this year. It wasn't until approximately September that the state, I think it was August or September, they told us they were going to do 1 grade level, and they chose the junior year, or ELA 3 and Algebra 2. And that wasn't until December 1st that we got the option of choosing which of those sequences to pick. It's likely that they will roll it up to another grade next year.
Oh, okay.
And then the question is whether they'd roll it up to the 3rd grade.
Okay,
So.
because that was my question. I thought it was Partnership for Readiness for College and Career, which it seems odd to have it end in 9th grade.
Mm-hmm.
They would obviously keep growing. Okay.
Comments, questions? Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Tim. And then you had a community member who spoke to you about something that I'll echo much of what she said, actually. On Monday, December 8th, 2014, the Illinois Association of School Administrators had asked Naperville School District 203 to host one of its information sessions regarding the Illinois Vision 2020. I provided a brochure of that for you in board docs for your review, and I would encourage you, as our community member did, to visit the IllinoisVision2020.org website to learn information regarding the Vision 2020 brought forth by the Leadership Alliance, which is led by the Illinois Association of School Administrators, Illinois Association of School Boards, Illinois Association of School Business Officials, Illinois Principals Association, and a couple other groups. The intent of this group was to bring forward a policy framework that as educational organizations in the state have conversation with legislators and folks in Springfield making policy and making decisions, that there be a framework in place to focus those conversations. And they've built those policy frameworks around 4 pillars that include highly effective educators, 21st century learning, shared accountability, equitable, and adequate funding. So I'd encourage you to go into the website, learn a little bit more about the Vision 2020 framework. I think as you look into it and then compare it next to the Focus 2020 blueprint that guides our district, you will see some overlap. You'll see some things that that I think speak to it. I'll echo some of the same comments that our community member made. I think locally we'll still have to have our own framework and make our decisions about what's appropriate for us, what legislative priorities we may want to focus on. But I am encouraged by at least the statewide framework that's being brought forward as a message point as opposed to as a reaction, that it's kind of carrying the torch for public education as opposed to always being in a reactionary mode. So it has, I have not seen this type of support across the state for a common message in my time in administration, so that I am very encouraged by that. So I'd encourage you to learn a little bit more about it, and then at future meetings, that if there's an interest, we can continue to discuss and talk about how it aligns with our own strategic blueprint.
Questions, comments? Okay. Very well. Next report, or summary again, of something we've already talked about, the 5-year financial forecast.
Okay, Brad can offer any additional comments that he may wish to, but this has been discussed at 2 previous board meetings. A significant update I would call to your attention that I'm sure you saw was the addition of a scenario that was requested by board members regarding a 2008 bond repurchase. So that has been provided for you, that assumes in February 2018 the district would call the remaining 2008 bonds and pay off the bonds from cash reserves. So Brad, do you have additional comments that you'd like to make?
No, just that I had been asked to what would be the savings to the district. You know, we've looked at these bonds before. These are interest-only bonds till 2024. Then they have 4 principal payments. We would be, if we did call the bonds, we'd save $3.2 million in interest expense. For a total reduction in the payments or the tax levy by $12.7 million by the time you combine that with the actual principal.
I would only then add that Brad and his staff continues to update the 5-year financial forecast. We'll have an updated one following new information that comes in regarding CPI that we hope, I think, for the January 20th Board of Education meeting.
Great. Thank you, thank you. Any other comments or questions on the projections? Anyone? Kristen?
Thanks for providing the additional information about the paying off of the 2008 bonds. It's helpful to be able to see that in the actual scenario. I'm wondering, in terms of the $9.5 million that is put in the red right here, could we, for example, I noticed we have the same, coincidentally,
what fiscal year are you on?
the 9.5 for FY 2018. Sorry,
so
I'm pointing at my pointing at my thing. It's not clear. My 9.5 in FY 2018. Coincidentally, we have a $9.5 million surplus this year, and I'm wondering, is that, for example, rolled forward, that surplus that we have rolled forward into the cash reserve, such that when we get to 2018, we've got that $9.5 million?
Sure.
Well, first, the fiscal year. Sorry.
He's asking.
Can you go ahead and pull up Terry? Can you put that
Sorry,
PowerPoint up there? And it's on. Yep.
It's on
Page 27.
It's an attachment, right? It's on page 27. Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Perfect.
Okay, well, first thing I would want to point out is based on the working budget, you're right, we are estimating a $9.5 million surplus for fiscal year 14-15. However, that's just estimated.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. And so then it does, there comes into the ending fund balance, which is cumulative. So then as it rolls across, we have our first red number, then it's subtracting from. So you can see we pretty much, will wash out by the time, it's estimated that, in 2018, if we buy back these bonds, we should be at about the same ending place as we would be at this end of this fiscal year.
If we were able to put that 9.5 into the cash reserve and kind of reserve it.
Well, right. It is going into cash reserves. God is
It has
correct.
to. It can't disappear, right?
Right. Right. Of course, it goes. I think into the fund balance, but I don't see down in the cash reserve in 2015. In 2016, it goes from 40. From 2015, it's 49, and it goes to 50. So it didn't go into that number. If we put it into that number, wouldn't we then have?
But you have to take into consideration. Brad can explain it. You have
Right.
to take into consideration
Well,
the expenses of that year.
Right. So that's one of the questions I've already had from one board member too. Let me explain what the cash reserve without June taxes. That's a calculated estimation, and what the main variable there is how much taxes do we actually collect by June 30, and that goes up and down. So I've already we're going to look into the details behind the program, because when I was talking with another board member, that doesn't seem to be as correlating as close as I would be expecting. But just know that unless the board redirects administration to do something different than allow any surplus to go into the reserves, that is where it goes. So just rest assured that that it takes board directive to reallocate a reserve once it goes into fund balance.
So basically, you're saying the 9.5 will go and it will be saved.
Yes.
So why is there such a large drop then when we have the? I'm sorry, I'm going backwards.
But
in
that
the wrong
9.5
direction.
doesn't exist in other scenarios.
Well,
It doesn't exist in all the scenarios. It's in the
All right.
Is it?
It's
So
in the fund
if
balance.
you
So
could-
it's moving out from the fund balance to pay off. It's a transfer among funds.
Well, that's because we have to transfer it to debt service to pay off the
Right.
bonds.
So it's not okay.
So this report is only the operating funds, and so you don't see the effect on the debt service fund. So that's why it's showing up here just as a transfer to go out to debt service. But also, if this report went back one more year, in fact, if you pull up a prior year's report, last year's report, you would see that we were estimating at the end of 14 our cash reserves at 41 million before taxes, and now you can see here it's going to estimate at 49.5. So that's where you don't see that increase, because you don't have the prior year number. But then on the future year numbers that are estimated, I do think that we got to tighten up that formula, because they don't seem to be tracking quite right
No,
either.
it doesn't. It doesn't, because you've got the 9 here, then you've got the 3, but that 3 doesn't go in then. If there was 9 that it came from last year, if it went 41 to 49 based on the 9 million, it would then go up to 54, or no, up to 52, and it just goes up to 50.
They're different measures. The
Right,
cash receipt, the receipts, the taxes, the cash receipt, they don't correlate. They're just totally different. Fund balance is the one where that amount tracks to.
Right. When it looks at strictly actual, the way this is working, you're looking at your fund balance. That's going to be an exact. Your estimated cash before taxes, that is going to have some variability in it because of how much taxes we collect in one year versus the other.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can fluctuate up and down a little.
Because it has the huge 12 drop, right in FY 2018. It goes from 48 to 36. So it seems like that 9 million isn't visible, and then it's being taken out right there, because there it goes down 12.
Right. Well, right. I will look. I've already said I'm going to look into that. I will get back to you. That's a calculated number based on the program, and there could be some. I think there needs to be some more.
So for our January report on the financial projection, we'll have clean numbers, and we'll
Yes,
be sure about that.
And I already made a note of that.
Brad, if I may just ask a question, if you can talk to calling the bonds, the $10 million of bonds, the '08 bonds that are interest only. I would just like to be able to share, I know many of us are very familiar with it, but maybe our community isn't. We would have no reason not to call these bonds. This isn't, we'll see. It's not a great investment for us to have these. They will be called. The point you had asked us as a board to consider a year ago right now is being able to purchase them in the open market at a premium. We will not have to pay that premium because these are callable bonds in 18. I don't see a scenario right now that it would make sense for us not to spend the money to do it. Personally, it would be a great investment, and it's a permanent abatement of the numbers you just shared with us, $12 million overall, and over the 3.2 interest expense.
Right.
So am I correct in that assumption? That money will be spent in 18?
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was reassuring myself of the same thing.
That's the track I'm on.
Okay. Any other comments or questions, projections? Okay, thank you. I just had a brief report, the President's report, just a brief report. I was not here at the last meeting, but I was the delegate that represented the board at the 2014 Resolutions Committee at the IASB annual conference. And the meeting was at 10:30 on Saturday morning, the 22nd. Very interesting. There were 25 new resolutions that were put before the delegates. And the IASB reviews them and has recommendations. After their recommendations, they have their recommendations. We receive a physical report. We go through it as a board, and we ask our superintendent to go through it with his staff. We agreed with the IASB's recommendation in all situations on all 25 new resolutions. One of the resolutions that came before us that morning failed, meaning the recommendation of the IASB that we all agreed with, and Dan and his staff agreed with, did not work. And the name of it was resolution, it was the item number 12, where people cannot have two elected offices. And it failed by, the yes votes were 124, the no votes were stronger at 172. In many smaller towns in southern Illinois in particular, people want to hold two elected positions. There was, I wouldn't say it was a robust discussion, but there were many people that said, I think there's conflict of interest when you have intergovernmental agreements, when you have land transactions, just a lot of conflicts of interest. So I'm just reporting that that's what had happened in our community. It'll be interesting to see where it goes from here, but they're saying that people can hold two elected offices, and in some cases, towns are so small they need to because they just don't have any other willing and able parties. So anyhow, that was it. Any other Board of Education reports? Sounds good. We're good. The monthly reports for you to look at: Treasurer's report, investments, insurance report, and budget. And our board colleague that did bills and claims this month was Susan Price. And if I could ask you to separate the meetings, please, because I have to vote on
the minutes. Okay.
Minutes. I'm sorry, not minutes. Yeah, the minutes.
All right.
Thank you.
I move approval of warrant number 394294 through warrant number 395035, totaling $19,622,669.27 for the period of November 17th, 2014 to December 15, 2014, and items number 8.02 and 8.04 for approval.
Thank you. So we have a motion. We have a motion and a second on 8.01. Items number 8.01, 8.02, and 8.04. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Bell on the consent agenda.
Price?
Yes.
Romberg?
Yes.
Fitzgerald? Aye. Fielden?
Yes.
Crotty?
Yes.
Wonky? Yes. Yench?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Motion carries.
Okay, I move approval of the minutes of 1 December 2014.
Second?
Okay, doke. We have a motion on the December 1st, 2014 board meeting minutes. Second, please.
Fielden?
Yes.
Price?
Yes.
Wonky? Yes. Yench?
Aye.
Romberg?
Abstain.
Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Crotty? Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
I move for approval of the minutes of 17 November 2014.
Second.
A motion and a second on the board meeting minutes for November 17th. Ms. Bell?
Wonky? Yes. Crotty? Abstain. Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Romberg.
Yes.
Yench.
Aye.
Price.
Yes.
Fielden.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for your patience on that. Discussion with action. Our first item on the agenda, 10.01, designate CFO to prepare budget.
Just an important step in our budget process. The Board of Education would designate Brad Kaufman, our Chief Financial Officer and Chief School Business Official, to begin work with his staff and District Cabinet Administration to prepare the budget for the coming year.
Okay.
I move approval to designate the CFO to prepare the budget.
So we have a motion and a second to designate the CFO to prepare budget. Any comments or questions? Ms. Bell, please.
Romberg.
Yes.
Prady. Yes. Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Wonky. Yes. Yench.
Aye.
Price.
Yes.
Fielden.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item number 10.02, 2014 tax levy determination. Sorry.
Okay, at previous Board of Education meetings, we've estimated and discussed anticipated 2014 certificate tax levy. Brad, do you have any additional information to present to the board this evening?
None unless there's questions.
So we would entertain questions or look
Okay,
for a
and I
motion.
just want to, just so familiarity, again, we have, but so the community understands, we have to file before the end of the calendar year our intent, or the district's intent on the tax levy. However, the final tax levy preparation can be changed up until March 31st. March 31st. We have a number of movable parts to this, which we may or may not get some information. I know each of the board members has some different things they're looking at. And so we'll have another discussion about this in March. So with that, any other comments or questions? Go ahead.
Well, thank you for all your detail on this, and this in conjunction with the 5-year projection is really very helpful. And you know what? I mentioned this to Dan, but I have a chance, so I don't know how much you have prepared on this. But we benchmark on test scores all the time, and as you're projecting a 5.6345, tax rate, have we benchmarked that against other districts, and where do we stand?
Well, yes. As far as the 14 projected rate, I guess I should say no. I've not asked, but we certainly know. That was part of the tax presentation that we gave on the first meeting in December. But thanks for asking that. As far as the Western Suburban LUDA tax or LUDA district tax rates, we are the 4th lowest. So only below us would be Barrington. This was for 2013. We've held this position for some time. Barrington, $4.60. Wheaton, $5.20. And then Elmhurst, $5.27. And, of course, our rate was $5.39. Of course, then our 4 benchmark districts above us, St. Charles at $5.88. Indian Prairie at $5.96, Batavia at $6.37, and then finally Geneva at $6.45. So,
thank you very much.
So we're moving the resolution, right? So we're moving for the approval of the resolution levying taxes. Is that what we're doing?
that is
Yes,
correct.
tax rate determination, yes, exactly.
Okay, so the resolution number 1412. So I move approval of resolution number 1412, levying taxes for Naperville Community Unit School District 203 for the year 2014.
We have a motion and a second for the agenda item number 10.02, the 2014 tax levy determination. And any other follow-up questions or comments? Ms. Bell?
Fielden.
Yes.
Romberg.
Yes.
Wonky.
Yes.
Prady.
Yes.
Yench.
Aye.
Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Price.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next agenda item are school improvement plans.
Annually, the administration presents to the Board of Education for your action school improvement plans for each of our schools. Those were presented to you at our last Board of Education meeting by Tim Morenga and Kane Osborne. Additional information that has been provided to your request is a document entitled Rising Star Indicator Organizer, 2 or more schools per indicator. And you see a matrix in there that identifies indicators that have been selected by 2 or more schools. Another request was made regarding some of the Wise Ways briefs. We will provide those at a future date for board members. Unless there's any additional questions, we'd be looking for action for approval of each of our improvement plans.
I move approval of 10.03, the school improvement plans as presented.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor for school improvement plans, 2014 school improvement plans. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Bell?
Romberg,
Yes.
Fielden,
Yes.
Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Crotty. Yes. Yench,
Aye.
Wonky. Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next agenda item, upcoming events.
Call attention to a couple quickly. First of all, safest of winter vacation times for our families. School will recess at the conclusion of business on Friday the 19th and resume on Monday, January 5th. I'd also call your attention to 2 dates for a Focus 203 spring session, January 21st and 22nd. Those will be on digital learning based on feedback from our State of the District presentations that we had earlier this year. So digital learning on January 21st and 22nd.
Great. Anyone else and any comments of upcoming events? Then I would love to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Enjoy your winter break, and we will look forward to seeing you on the 5th of January, 2015. Thank you.